Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Tim Scott just shatters the entire left-wing narrative of The View and gives them a dose of reality that truly proves that America is still the greatest nation on earth.
When it comes to racial inequality, it persists in five core aspects of life in the U.S. economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence. You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've asked
or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's
been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had two African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African-American.
Still exceptions.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50% of the folks in our community
get 13% of the population.
You had the chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing.
That is true.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest the fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It can be measured in generations. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on a sidewalk, a white person was coming, he had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then, with some doubt now, in the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine. Every kid today can look, just change the stations and see how much progress has been made in this country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African-American and Hispanic hosts.
And he's absolutely right. Tim Scott is telling a very American and a very wonderful success story. So let's draw back a little bit. The left thinks that there is still systemic racism in America. My theory is in that ballpark, but they're missing the point. They're missing the plot, actually. Civil rights ended the Jim Crow era. The Civil War ended slavery. And in our Constitution, in order to pave the way for eventual black citizenship, they had the Three-Fifths Compromise. Even Frederick Douglass, a prominent anti-slavery black man who educated himself into not the halls of Congress, but into prominence amongst the entire nation through his writings and through his wit. He even understood that the Three-Fifths Compromise was progress. That is one of the underlying stories of the United States. Progress. Hey y'all, this is a shout out to my friends over at Colonial Metals Group, where CEO Paul Stone and his expert associates fully understand the gravity of our current situation and want to protect your wealth backed by gold, silver, and other precious metals. Folks, we are in an era of record inflation. We have a Congress that won't stop spending and a president who doesn't even know what planet he's on. That's how bad the situation is, and that's why I'm partnering with Colonial Metals Group. And if you have a first-time account with these fine upstanding people, you will receive up to $7,500 worth of silver, a nice old safe to keep all the good stuff in. You will get Roth IRA accounts for free backed by gold and silver, and insurance and warranty on these items for 5 years, all for free. So call the number below or check out the link in the description and let CEO Paul Stone and his expert team help you now, because your wealth might evaporate before your very eyes. Protect your wealth, protect your family, protect your future with Colonial Metals Group today. Now, back to regularly scheduled programming. In 1619, we brought the first slaves to America. Some were actually white. There was something called a 20-pounder, where you could throw basically a Scotsman or an Irishman into indentured servitude for about 5 years in the tobacco fields of the Carolinas and parts of Virginia. And then, of course, there was chattel slavery that was brought over from Africans and Arab slavers who took tribes and then transported them throughout the world. You also have to realize that where slaves were transported to, their best hope was America. If you got transported to the Caribbean, you were going to be put into the sugarcane fields, where there's a good chance you might have an arm literally be boiled off in order to make the sugar process, or your hand's going to get caught in the cranks of the sugarcane processors. It is a hard life in the Caribbean, or at least used to be, before they introduced a certain drug that made Bob Marley. And then there's Brazil. You did not want to go to Brazil. The conditions I just outlined were worse. In the United States, and what initially were the colonies, you worked the fields. And you would also do some construction work. So I'm not saying that it was a good thing to be enslaved. I'm saying compare the horror stories of the Caribbean and Brazil to the United States. Now, of course, there were horror stories. We've all seen the picture of a black man with the stripes up and down his back from the whip. And then we fought a war to free that and to end that terrible system. And 100 years later, after the South still didn't learn its lesson, we then woke up and realized this is probably a bad thing. And so we passed civil rights legislation. So what the left is complaining about is not the fact that we have progressed. They're complaining about the fallout. We have ended the redlining policies. I think the last of those went away in the 80s. Redlining is over. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is no longer a truly egalitarian, multicultural, everyone gets along with one another sort of story and sort of culture. No. The pendulum is now, for some reason, swinging back towards self-segregation. This is maddening. This is anti-progress. Tim Scott is trying to tell the people on The View that the once quite literal power structure of the United States was indeed partially racist. That has been ended. So The View is complaining about something completely different. And if you go back and look, you'll even notice Whoopi Goldberg not fidgeting, but being hyper-focused, giving that weird left-leaning head tilt. If you're a guy, you know what that means. Means I'm skeptical, but she's listening because she understands the words that are coming out of Tim Scott's mouth. He's telling the truth. He's telling the story where his father had to move to the other side of the sidewalk and not make eye contact with a white person. That's what segregation looks like. That's what separate but equal looks like. And we have overcome that. We have overcome that through our media systems. Ironically enough, I know just bringing up his name is going to bring up controversy. I don't care. The Bill Cosby Show did more to help with relations on race relations than I think any other program that the United States has ever implemented. This is the positives of media, and that's where the good progress happens in this great nation. Tim Scott is a walking, talking, perfect American success story. He is a man, and most conservatives understand this. If you're a black conservative, it usually means you've gotten over your trauma. That's what it seems to me in the circles that I run in, and the influencers that I know. These are people who have understood, I don't need to be traumatized anymore. I need to go about my life as an independent human being. And they ultimately, people like Rob Smith, Paris Denard, and of course Tim Scott, have overcome this problem. Again, progress and overcoming, two huge themes to the American story. And the left wants to discredit all of it. Don't let them continue to dismiss the truth. And the truth is, America is one of the greatest nations on earth because we continually move forward and we overcome the obstacles that are put in our way. That's what makes this country great. And that's why Tim Scott is one of the more based politicians out there. Maybe not one of the best when it comes to legislation, but he is absolutely and unfathomably based. I love Tim Scott. Good for him for going on The View to educate them and hopefully the viewership that don't fully understand this. That America is a progressive nation and the good kind of progressive, and we overcome the obstacles in our path. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed this segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.